Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes after... 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. You see how relaxed I am here, Robin?
Oh, yeah.
There's really no pressure for me. There's no pressure at all. We do the radio show every day. We just take it for granted. We're going to push the button. We're going to be on the air. If I say something wrong, it doesn't matter. There's no pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Years ago, I got a little story about you regarding pressure. In order to introduce our next guest, I was thinking, do I have a good story? And I have one.
Okay.
Years ago, when I used to play colleges, and by playing colleges, for those who don't know me, all it meant was I was on the college circuit. I played guitar. I was like a John Denver kind of a guy. I would stand on the stage and sing to the college kids, and I went from one school to the next. And I always had a clipboard, and that clipboard had my list of songs on it. And one day I got to the school, and my clipboard was not to be found. I couldn't find it. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you where I found it before I tell you the rest of the story. I found it in the street outside the hotel I was staying in. I must have set it on top of my car and drove away, and it fell off the car. But that's not what I want to tell you. What I want to tell you is what happened is that I think I had the best show ever. Mm-hmm. Because I stood there and I said to the audience, kind of typical me, oh, I got to let you know, I hope I do okay. I don't even remember what songs I'm supposed to play because I used this crutch for so long. I used this... Mm-hmm. This thing I thought I needed this, and then it proved to me I didn't need it. And there's a science behind performing under pressure. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I feel it.
Well, Hendrie Weisinger is on the phone. He's been with us before, Dr. Hendrie Weisinger. He signed the book, Warmest Wishes, Hank. He said, to Larry, who makes interviews pressureless.
Yes, you do.
And so I guess Hank is the nickname for Hendrie, and he's on the phone, so let's not make him wait. He's a psychologist, a pioneer in the field of pressure management. He has consulted with and developed programs for Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. I wonder if you ever worked with a John Denver wannabe. Performing under pressure. Yeah. Good morning, doctor. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. No pressure at all. Just relaxed. Just enjoying life.
Well, that's a good way. That's a good way to be.
So there's a sign. Where are you right now? Where are you calling from? I like to know that.
I am calling from the state of Connecticut.
Oh, I love Connecticut.
It's nice. After living in L.A., which was much more pressure-oriented.
Was it really? See, I liked L.A. too.
Yep.
But then again, I was 22 years old at that time. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
So thank you for signing the book. That's very nice of you.
You're very welcome, and I'm sure it's going to be very useful in your life.
Yeah, and so there's a science. Knowing that there's a science behind it almost makes me want to put pressure on myself. It's almost like, wow, I can use this to perform better. No.
Let me tell you, one of the things that I learned as I was researching this book for years and years and years is that there are many myths that we hold about the idea of pressure, many of them perpetuated by the sports media. And I think one of the most important is that nobody does better under pressure. Nobody rises to the occasion. Nobody in sports is clutch. While there are clutch hits, clutch plays, there are not clutch performers. The C student, for example, is never going to rise to the occasion and get 1,600 on their SATs. But frequently, the A student will, quote, choke on a test. What choking means is doing less than your best when you want to do your best, when you have something on the line. That's the definition of pressure, a situation in which you have something on the line and the outcome is dependent on your performance. Now, nobody does better in those situations. So the edge is not rising to the occasion. The edge is minimizing the negative effects of pressure, which, believe me, are plentiful. I always like to tell people that if I had to personify the concept of pressure, it would be that it's a villain in your life because it downgrades your cognitive success tools, your thinking, your attention, your memory, your judgment. It bends your ethics. I mean, why do smart kids cheat? If they're so smart, why don't they figure out the answer? And I would say that the reason they do cheat is because the pressure that they feel about getting good grades. Many times it comes from, their parents. So it's not a good thing. The key is that you want to minimize the effects of pressure.
So do you think that pressure? Okay, maybe it doesn't make us do better, but maybe pressure allows us to demonstrate what we've prepared for. Let me give you an example. Let's say I've never really driven in Washington, D.C. traffic. I mean, I have, but let's say I have never. And the only reason I'm using that city is because I'm petrified with Washington, D.C. I can drive in Brooklyn, I can drive in Manhattan because I'm from there, but going to D.C. is like a different animal, and I'm scared. I got the white knuckle thing going on, okay? But yet I pulled through that whole experience, whatever I'm in that Beltway thing. I don't know why. It's kind of crazy. You're the psychologist. I don't know why one city scares me and another doesn't. But I feel like I do pretty good, and it's like I rose to the occasion because of the pressure.
Well, I would say you rose to the occasion because you know how to drive.
Okay.
That would be,
so
again, because, what are the elements of pressure? And one of them is anxiety, uncertainty. There's an uncertain outcome. If you're watching a sporting event and the team that you are hoping to win is up by 50 points and there's like 2 seconds left, you probably turn off the TV set. But if it's a tie score, you're sitting on the edge of your chair.
Right,
so
right.
Because anxiety, uncertainty is in every pressure situation, anxiety makes people do worse. That an anxious driver, sooner or later, is going to get into a accident. It's like when you're learning how to drive and you're pulling out of the garage, you have a checklist of things to do. You have, is my seatbelt on? You look over the mirror to see if anybody's in back of you. You look on the side. Now, eventually, you're not even thinking about those types of things. You're just pulling out. You're just doing them.
You've become so good at it. Yeah.
Right. Think of when you play the guitar. So you said you go on. So first, when you have to learn a song, you have to pay attention. But when you're performing in front of a bunch of hundreds or thousands of college students, if you start thinking about am I playing the right chord, that's where you start to make
absolutely yes. That still happens if you learn a new song that has some newfangled chord or whatever. You still do the same thing. So
right. And I would say in that driving example, what happened after a few seconds, you started to get a little more comfortable, and then the automatic process of driving just took over, because that's what you've been doing for years and years and years.
Yeah, and in heavy traffic like that, I just pretend it's New York, because for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, in a home city for me, it's easier than in a city I'm not familiar with.
Well, that's true with anything. That's why practice is the most important thing in preparing for a situation and also anticipating the unknown. I mean, I will tell you that my daughter lived in L.A. for many years, and for like 7 years, anytime she had to drive somewhere, she avoided driving on the freeways.
Oh, really? Yeah, I can see
exactly.
that. But you know what a lot of people can relate to? I'm sure not many people can relate to my college example, but I think a lot of people can relate to this. When you're applying for a job, or if even more frequently when you're, what do you want to say, a salesperson, and you have to call on like cold calls, people you've never met. That's a high anxiety thing, and so I'm guessing what you're saying is that if there's a way, if you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, I thought you fell over.
Thank you, though.
Bless you, whatever that was. I just thought, okay, where was I saying now?
About high anxiety for cold
anxiety.
Well, we've spoken to you before. And so this is a great example. Whenever we speak to somebody new, I've got a little anxiety, but when I've spoken to you before, I'm a little bit more relaxed. That's maybe what I'm trying to say.
Now why is it making a sales call, why is that anxiety arousing for some people and not anxiety arousing for others?
I don't know.
Well, think about it.
Because you don't know how they're going to react. You think they're going to Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they think you're trying to sell them something bad. You know, they don't know what kind of a person you are and what you're actually representing.
Okay, the most important finding of why people do well in a pressure situation. Remember what doing well is. Doing well is performing to your capabilities. That's what doing well is. So I can call somebody or give a presentation, and it can be great, and it's the best I can do. But the reality is it's not good enough. So in other words, the idea of managing pressure is that it allows you to perform closest to your capabilities, which in fact might not be good enough. But that is a big difference than going into a situation, becoming overly self-conscious, becoming anxious, blanking, and not doing your best because of the pressure. This is when athletes feel bad. Athletes there's no shame in losing when you've done your best. But if you don't do your best, that's when people feel badly about themselves. And the number one factor that people can start to do immediately and ask themselves is, how do you perform, how do you perceive a pressure situation? When I was starting in the business and I was calling companies to pitch my my areas of expertise, I didn't get anxious because I saw it as an opportunity. So question one is, do you see a pressure moment as something that is threatening, or do you see it as an opportunity? When you are driving in a new city, you're seeing that as threatening. Well, if you see something as threatening, obviously you're going to not have a lot of confidence, and you're going to have a lot of anxiety. Anytime my kids were having an interview, and I recommend this, anytime anybody has a job interview or you're giving a presentation, to see it and tell yourself this is a challenge, it's an opportunity, and it's going to be fun. And that evaporates a lot of the pressure right there, because it allows you to approach a situation without trepidation. If I'm going into an interview and I start to think, oh, this is the biggest opportunity I've ever had, I'm never going to get another chance like this again, the chances are great that I am going to start choking.
So when I forgot in my example, when I forgot my clipboard, I basically set myself up without realizing it to prove that I could do what I thought I needed the training wheels for.
And you were just relying on what you have been doing, hundreds of times before, and that process starts to take over.
How about the person that that is very aggressive in nature, and then they start talking to the individual, and they want to try to get you over to your way of thinking. Right away, I would think that the individual they're speaking to goes on the defensive because he didn't generate any kind of provocation.
Exactly, and a good strategy for that, it's like when you have to make a decision. Most of the decisions that we make when we are pressured are situations that we regret. I mean, think of how many times when I used to live in L.A., I did a lot of therapy. Now, I always say, if you live in Los Angeles, you have to do therapy. But I was licensed to do it, and I would see a lot of people, for example, would get into bad relationships because they felt pressured, or how many women really weren't ready to have children, pressured by their husband, or vice versa. And that's where resentment starts to build up. So it's very important to remember that the more time you have, the more you can slow down your thinking, the less pressure you feel and the better decision you're going to make. I always tell people, I do a lot of work with financial advisors, and many times you get a client who says, I want a financial plan, I want your decision on what I should do tomorrow. And I always tell the financial advisor, I'll do it as fast as I can, but it might take a few days. I'm not going to rush. A little exercise that you can try is to write your name as neatly as you can, and then write your name as fast as you can, and you will see a big difference. And why do you think doctors have such bad handwriting?
Yeah,
because they're in such a rush, in a hospital, and they just scribble things because time pressure. Everybody does worse under under time pressure.
All right.
This is why good athletes are able to slow down whatever sport they are. They mentally slow it down.
All right. I think you're making a lot of sense. We need to take a little break, but when we come out of the break, I want to ask you if in the book, which is titled Performing Under Pressure, for the listeners that just tuned in, I want to find out if the book actually gives us some techniques, some ways to perhaps change whatever pressure we might be under so that we're not under pressure and perform our best. So we'll take a little break and be right back with Dr. Hendrie Weisinger. He is the author of the book, Performing Under Pressure, calling in from the beautiful, is it the Nutmeg State? Yes, Connecticut, right? Isn't it the Nutmeg State? All right, we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Sunshine and building clouds today. Watch out for an afternoon and evening thunderstorm, the high 90 to 94. Partly cloudy overnight, low 71 to 75. Tomorrow, sunshine mixing with clouds, an afternoon and evening thunderstorm around, high 90 to 94. On Saturday, Independence Day, times of clouds and sun with an afternoon thunderstorm likely, the high 90 to 94. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
One of the most common questions those nearing retirement are asking, will I outlive my money? Retirement questions like these and many more will be answered every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement with hosts Francois and Julian Pozenet. Francois and Julian will help you put your retirement puzzle together. Catch Planning for a Better and Safer Retirement Saturdays at 9 a.m. on Ocala's News Talk, The Source 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
La Famiglia Pizzeria has moved into Ocala. Stop by today at 2504 Southeast 17th Street and see for yourself what everyone is talking about.
Awesome place. I never get pizza anywhere else.
Great New York-style pizza and dishes.
Best pizza in Ocala.
One trip and you'll agree, La Famiglia Pizzeria is the best. La Famiglia Pizzeria. Stop by for a pizza that you'll love or call in and order yours for pickup. 352-245-2419. La Famiglia Pizzeria.
All right, 8 minutes before 10 o'clock. All right, this is a fascinating interview, and so far, I think we've learned something. Maybe we already kind of had a hunch that we don't perform as well under pressure, although, as Dr. Weisinger was pointed out, because of sports, we often think, well, that's when we perform our best, and apparently we don't. And so now we're going to find out what in the book will help us to perform better in circumstances that we might be under pressure. Okay, Dr. Weisinger, what do we do? Let's see if I can create a little story. Let's say I'm about to do something that I'm feeling pressure. Do you know, I was watching this video. This is kind of coincidental. I was watching this video because I'm just a curious man. These women were telling men how to approach women and not be so uptight. And they were saying, take a deep breath. And they were doing stuff like that. I mean, is it as simple as that, just doing some of those yoga things?
Well, it is. But to build on that example, recently I was giving a talk in Canada to a financial company. There must have been about 500 financial advisors in the room. So one young guy at the back of the room says, how do you deal with the pressure of asking a girl out for the first time that you really like? And he said, for me, that's a lot of pressure. And before I could even answer, another guy jumped up, about maybe 5, 6 years older, and he said, just remember, there's 1,000 other girls waiting for the same phone call. Now, everybody laughed, but everybody knew it was true. And the point to extract there is that always think in multiple opportunities, that this is just another opportunity. See, when a person's going in for a...
That's good advice.
When a person's going for an interview, one of the things that pressure, how it affects our thinking, is it creates what I call pressure distortions, distorted ways of how we perceive the situation. And one of them is what I call chance-in-a-lifetime thinking. We start to think, this is the biggest opportunity of my life, the only chance I'm ever going to get.
Right.
So you're actually creating what I call a primal do-or-die situation. You have to remember, for your ancestors, for early man, a pressure moment was a do-or-die situation. And where do you think that term came from? You hear it like in March Madness. Well, a do or die, but for your ancestors, it was literally true. And many times we respond to the pressure moment mistakenly as though it is a do-or-die situation. When I first started giving presentations, every presentation was the most important one. This is the most, I'm never going to get this chance. I can't even remember how many times I said that, but there's always another opportunity. So parents inadvertently put a lot of pressure on their kids by telling them this is the most important test they're ever going to take. That makes the kid do worse. So you know that, see, pressure is inherent in our lives, because anytime something is important, it creates a sense of pressure because we want to do well in the tasks that are important. But when you can think in terms of the mindset, so this is one thing. I already said one thing, always approach a situation as though it's an opportunity and a challenge. The second part of what I like to call the pressure-less mindset is to always think in multiple opportunities. A third is to always, and this is counterintuitive, shrink the importance of the situation. Joe Flacco said before he won the Super Bowl, when he was asked, well, how do you prepare for the Super Bowl? And his response was, it's just another game. Now, media people hate hearing that. It's just another game. It's the Super Bowl.
Right.
That's what the winning quarterback, that's how the person is actually thinking.
I love what you're saying. It makes so much sense, yeah.
Let's say, Larry, you were back to your college days and you're giving a concert. I would tell you the night before you perform, the night before you take a test, the night before an interview, to write down your feelings and anxieties the night before. Studies have shown that when you write down your feelings and anxieties the night before, you do better in the pressure moment because you've gotten those anxieties out of your system. You know, how many times have you come in and maybe you're talking to Robin or something, or one of your friends about something that has been going on that is terrible, and then after you spoke about it for 5 hours, it's like, you know, I'm sick of talking about this. I don't want to think about it anymore.
Right. Well,
that's exactly what happened.
Oh, I love that strategy. You know what helped me too back in those days, because stage fright was an inevitable part of my performing. And I was listening to an interview with the singer Carly Simon, and she said that she's so stage fright sometimes she vomits before a show, and that never happened to me. But I thought to myself, wow, somebody that established gets nervous also. So I thought, well, maybe that's what's supposed to happen. And for some reason, thinking, well, stage fright is supposed to happen, suddenly it wasn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And if you think of that as, instead of being nervous, just use the word excited. I get excited before a presentation, but I don't get nervous. And yet it's the same physiology. It has to do with how you perceive the situation. Are you a lefty or a righty?
Righty.
Okay. So one of the things that I would tell you to do, like if you're playing the guitar again in front of people, is to clench your left fist. And by clenching your left fist, moments before you have to perform, you interrupt in the brain the language area that is responsible for ruminating thinking, worry thoughts.
Really?
So so, you know, the studies show that done that with multiple groups of athletes, they all do better. So that's important. You can only use it if you are a righty, clenching your left fist. So athletes, right before they make a golf putt, right before they make a foul shot, would be wise to be clenching their left fist.
So does the opposite work for a lefty? Do they clench their right fist?
No, it doesn't work. If you're Phil Mickelson, it's not going to help you.
That's interesting. All right, before we run out of time, let's give this copy away. I've got, no, this is signed to me, so I'm not giving it away. Okay.
It is. It's yours.
So you have to go buy these books.
Yes.
Okay, Performing Under Pressure, Hendrie, Weisinger, and J.P. Paul, how do you say his name, Paul?
J.P. Paul Lufry.
Paul Lufry, okay. So how do we get the book? Do you have a website?
I do have a website, but people can go on Amazon, which is probably the best deal to get it, or in Kindle. And my website is drhendrieweisinger.com. And the big news is I'll be starting an online course on the subject for both individuals and for parents by the end of the year. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, my goodness. It sounds so interesting. Well, you're definitely welcome back anytime, Doctor. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was fun.
And let me just say my final word.
Yeah.
May the pressure not be with you.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you, Doctor. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Gulf states reach a historic agreement with BP over the Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
Today's settlement is a game changer for Louisiana, its communities, and its families.
Louisiana Attorney General Buddy Caldwell, the Justice Department calls the $18.7 billion settlement the largest with a single entity ever in America. A lockdown at the Navy Yard